So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by chocolate candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off chocolate candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
I just saw on the internet the other day, some guy ran naked through a Waffle House and shot a bunch of people. How fucked up do you have to be barefoot in a Waffle House? You see somebody barefoot in a Waffle House, you get the fuck out of there. This person has no will to live.
Good morning. It's Friday, Parenting Friday, August the 22nd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and the collapse of parenting. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Final thoughts from Maria, Mornings with Maria Bartiromo, and then Varney and Company.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, crazy day, right? So much news. I don't know. I'm following that Comer investigation. I'm following that AutoPen investigation. That's what I'm thinking about. And I'm wondering how so many folks are convinced the American people are not curious for answers here. I want answers. I know a lot of people, Democrat and Republican, who want answers. And I'm hoping people have the decency to understand why the American people are really owed the truth here.
Yeah, because of some of the things that were signed that affected people's lives.
And so it never happens again, right? So we know what was going on and keep it from happening.
Yeah, that's a very good point. All right, John Lotsky.
Okay, a little bit concerned that inflation has been rising of late, but at the same time, the labor market has been weakening. And I believe that ultimately, as long as the labor market weakens, softens, that will drive inflation lower. It's not going to happen overnight, but there's no way in the world that you're going to moderate the cost of living without slower economic growth.
All eyes are going to be on Jerome Powell, his final speech at the symposium. Elizabeth Hupka, John Lotsky, it's great to have you both here this morning. A lot of breaking news. Maria's got ECB President Christine Lagarde at the Jackson Hole Symposium. We'll have that on Monday. Over to David Assman.
Cheryl, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm David Assman. Stuart Varney, you'll be happy to hear, will be back on Monday. Well, the countdown is on. In just 1 hour, Fed Chair Jerome Powell takes the stage for his final Jackson Hole address. Will he hint at a September rate cut or stick to the solid labor market script? We'll find out. Markets this morning heading higher. The Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ all posting higher in the early pre-market activity. The 10-year yield on treasuries is down just a tick to 4.32. The 2-year treasury is up just a tick, up 0.02 to 3.81. Bitcoin trading down a little bit, $187 to the downside to $112,351 for one Bitcoin. On the show today, President Trump making a surprise visit to D.C. law enforcement last night, getting a firsthand look at efforts to restore order in the Capitol. So far, so good. And today at noon Eastern, he's making a major announcement from the Oval Office. We'll presage what may happen then. Plus, former White House spokesperson Ian Sams, once the loudest defender of President Biden's mental sharpness, well, now admits under oath he's only met the president twice. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer is now suggesting that Kamala Harris may be called on to testify as part of that investigation into Biden's use of an auto pen. And speaking of Kamala, she's hitting the road for an international book tour, a memoir about her failed presidential run. We'll get into that with Steve Hilton coming up. It is Friday, August 22nd, 2020.
And that was David Assman, and they say that Stewart will be back on Monday, but that's what they said last week. So the other thing is that where they fail here, the news people, is in identifying people. They allow people like Jerome Powell and John Bolton to achieve transparency by failing to identify them as the political operatives that they are. They're both liberals, and whenever they mention Powell's name, they should call him Liberal Powell and Liberal John Bolton. So then that makes things absolutely clear. Otherwise, the things that we're discussing, it seems like they're just regular citizens. John Bolton, he didn't mention this, but John Bolton, his house is being raided as we speak by the FBI. And I say, great. The more liberals who have their houses raided, the better, because then maybe they'll quit doing stupid things. Maybe they'll quit abusing power. Okay, so back in a minute. Thank you. Europe won.
Choses qui sont complètement hors sol, c'est-à-dire qu'on ne s'attend pas à voir ça. Alors c'est vrai que c'est joli de fermer une chaîne en disant que le divertissement qu'elle propose est parfois un peu tendancieux, vulgaire. Regardez, ils ont dit un gros mot. En plus, mais là, ils ne se rendent même pas compte de la violence, de l'inanité de ces vidéos.
C'est-à-dire, en fait, ils sont dépassés, en fait.
Ils sont dépassés. Et moi, je vais même vous dire quelque chose, c'est que il y a des chaînes, par exemple, comme C8. elles avaient au moins un avantage. Les jeunes la regardaient. Alors on peut en penser ce qu'on veut. Mais pendant qu'ils regardaient ça, c'était 1 heure ou 2 qu'ils étaient peut-être en moins sur des vidéos comme ça. Parce que le problème aussi, c'est que comme il n'y a plus vraiment de médias jeunesse, spécialisés dans la jeunesse, moi je me souviens avec un peu de nostalgie de quand je rentrais de l'école et qu'il y avait des dessins animés. Vous voyez, les chaînes avaient des choses pour les enfants. Maintenant, il n'y a plus rien. Ce que j'ai envie de dire, c'est que forcément, quand vous n'avez pas d'offres adaptées de toute façon, les enfants, les écrans, ils sont devenus addicts. Donc si la télé ne leur propose rien, ils iront trouver les choses qui leur plaisent, et si les choses qui leur plaisent, c'est sur leur portable, là, les parents, ils savent même pas ce qui se passe. Choses qui sont complètement...
And that was Europe 1. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now on Ass Man and Friends, he's got a little bit of a article or a blurb about Alligator Alcatraz.
Late last night, a federal judge ruled that no additional detainees are going to be allowed to be sent to so-called Alligator Alcatraz, the holding facility for violent illegal criminals. And the state must start shutting down that facility. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds joins me now. I want to drill into this, but first just get your reaction. Lawfare didn't stop. We were talking to Mark Thiessen about this, and this is the new extension of this, and there are literally hundreds of judges that can make decisions that affect the Trump agenda. What do you make of this?
Okay, so I'm not going to get into what the senator makes of it or not makes of it, which is it's a stupid question anyways. What he's doing is he's misreporting this whole thing. Because he's missing the word liberal. He's omitting one word that is key to the entire story, and that's liberal. He should have reported it as a liberal judge does this, that, and the other thing. Then he goes on to talk about lawfare. Liberal lawfare, which is, I imagine, shorthand for law warfare. And liberal, because they're the ones that created this idea. They're the ones that gave birth to the idea of using the law as a weapon. Liberal lawfare. When you're calling things out, you have to do this. You have to call out these judges as what they are, liberals. And you have to call out lawfare as a liberal invention, because otherwise you allow them to achieve transparency. They love transparency. Why? Because it gives them, the liberals, a cloak of respectability, a cloak of normalcy, right? So if you just say a judge, a federal judge, then your presumption is, well, then he must know what he's doing. He must be, you have studied the issue. He must be learned. He must, everything that he is doing on this particular issue must be above board. And then how do you fight this? You can't. You're stuck. But if you report it the way it should be reported, say a liberal federal judge ruled that blah, 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 and said that this must be taken down. By the way, the judge is bluffing. This liberal judge is bluffing when he says it must be taken down or dismantled. He has no authority to make that call. It's not up to him to decide. But he figures it this way. I'm going to go ahead and write it anyhow. Maybe I can bluff the administration, in this case the DeSantis administration, into going ahead and dismantling the Alligator Alcatraz. Now, same thing goes here with lawfare, liberal lawfare, and how long is this going to go on? As long as the people like him continue to give liberal lawfare a cloak of respectability by refusing to call it out as what it is, liberal. The same thing we see with Washington, D.C. Children are running amok. It's young people that are creating most of the crimes there. Liberal young people that are raised by liberals. Right now, we're in a situation where Donald Trump is cleaning up, the Republicans, let's put it this way, Republicans are cleaning up Democrat messes. The Democrats are making a mess of Washington, D.C. It's Republicans and Republican taxpayers that are ending up having to pay to clean up their mess. In essence, paying to wipe their bottoms. Okay, they've pooped their pants, and now the Republicans are going to come along and wipe their bottoms. And Donald Trump should be calling this out for what it is. Liberal parents raising liberal children with the sovereign child thing going on are ruining Washington, D.C. Now the whole thing takes on a different perspective. I'm sick and tired of hearing things, the liberals screw things up, but then it's reported as an American problem, or a California problem, or a Los Angeles problem. No, it's a liberal problem. I would propose that for Washington, D.C., since it's taxpayers all over the country that are picking up the tab for this, that we should have some way of making sure that the liberals pay the lion's share of the taxes for cleaning up Washington, D.C. Maybe some type of a special tax or whatnot on Washington, D.C., and the people who live in Washington, D.C. to pay for cleaning it up. If they had to do that, maybe the next time they go to the ballot, they won't elect the same liberal assholes. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, let's get motivated.
Everyone says, well, you should be harmless, virtuous. You shouldn't do anyone any harm. You should sheath your competitive instinct. You shouldn't try to win. You know, you don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to take a back seat and all of that. It's like, no, wrong. You should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it.
It's impossible to respect yourself until you grow those mental teeth. And when you grow those teeth, you realize that you're dangerous.
You begin to demand success for yourself. You're no longer wishing or hoping things work out. You're going to make it happen no matter what. So you start carrying yourself with a different level of confidence and conviction that says to the world, I will not stop.
I am going to assess the situation. I am going to come up with a plan, and I am going to execute.
I'm going to go get it because I'm built for it. If you set out and you say you're going to do something, do yourself a favor and don't lie to yourself. That is the worst thing that an individual can ever do.
The people in life that win play offense, not defense. Stop backing into everything. Stand up. Bow your back a little bit. Start to walk a little different. Start to be that best version of you. You can do it in your quiet way. You can do it the way you do it. But somehow they got to look at you and go, okay, I won't monkey with that one.
I need you to put the type of effort forward that the world knows don't come from you.
You have to develop a doggedness. You got to have some toughness in you. And the only way to develop toughness is you got to practice being tough. And you cannot practice being tough by quitting every time you get tired, by stopping every time you don't feel like it, by giving up every time it gets challenged. That's what's wrong with people now. People don't make it because they always give up when it get hard. You know, it's so challenging now. You know, they was talking about me. I feel weak. I'm tired. Life don't give a damn about you being tired. You got to get about the business now. You want to be successful, you got to get at it. You got to stop all this soft shit and all that mess, man. You got to get at it. You got to tear their mouth out.
When you go out there, I need you to have that dog. When you get out there, I need you kill or be killed when you get out there. When you get out there, whatever you can get, go get it. Because they gonna get it before you get it. And they ain't gonna give it to you. So you go out there and get what's yours.
A true monster's mentality is when you're willing to forgo rest, forgo comfort, forgo personal desires, forgo whatever it takes to be better than you were yesterday. And every single time you feel like quitting, remember all those hours and days you sacrificed to get to where you are.
It's going to take you getting a hold of this thing and not letting go. You're going to have to fight and fight and fight till you can't fight anymore. Whatever it takes, I will do whatever I have to do
do to get to the other side, to make it over, to press through this. Nothing will hold me back. Nothing will stop me.
If there's something that you want and you're hungry for it, you've got to do whatever is necessary until. And when you give the best you can and that's not enough, you must do what is required. And don't give up on yourself. Don't throw the towel in so quickly. Many people give up on the 1-yard line. There will be things that will happen to you in life that will get you down. But you must always stand up inside yourself and know that you can handle this. You've got to stand up to it and say, I'm going to do this anyhow, and I'm not going to let you stop. And you've got to be so relentless that you're always looking for a way to get over, always looking for a way that you can break through, always looking for a way that you can win, always looking for a way that you can strike a telling blow.
If you tell that thing, I'm here just like you here, and I promise you, I ain't leaving without the degree. I will not leave without that goal. I will not leave without that dream. I will not leave this university. I will not leave this job. I will not leave this client. I will not leave this opportunity until I'm successful. And you can't go back to that same old mindset. You gotta focus on this new day, this new mindset, these new goals. You can do it because that monster inside of you won't give up. That monster inside of you won't give in. That monster inside of you won't throw in the towel.
Failing doesn't mean you quit. It means you failed, but get back up and continue to push that bar higher and higher and higher. When you're constantly pushing and getting up earlier and getting up earlier and getting up earlier and fighting through pains and discomforts, you don't care about failure. You actually welcome it. That means you set the bar so high that it's like, oh, I failed. That's where I need to be. Now I got to figure it out. You have to be uncommon amongst uncommon in your world. It takes everything. And then when you think you've given everything, you've just begun.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of meditation. was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Pope Leo.
The disciples were surprised to find that the upper room had already been made ready for them to celebrate the Passover. We are invited to discover here an image of our own hearts, chosen and set aside by the Lord as a place of encounter with Him. First, however, we must respond to the Lord's initiative by preparing our hearts through concrete acts of love, forgiveness, and self-giving, so that He may come and dwell within us. By asking for our cooperation, He reminds us that true love, like the Passion itself, is not the result of chance, but a conscious and free decision to give of oneself. Let us ask the Lord today to teach us how to prepare for His presence and so be able to welcome Him into our hearts.
And that was Pope Leo XIV. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Europe 1.
Bonjour à tous, je vous donne rendez-vous dès ce lundi 25 août de 11h30 à 13h. Ça sera du lundi aujourd'hui pour une émission Christine Kelly et vous, mais avec deux chroniqueurs hors pair, Gabriel Cluzel et Eric Tegner. Je vous donne rendez-vous lundi 11h30. Bonjour à tous.
And that was Europe 1. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the collapse of parenting.
Chapter 4, Medication. Trent is 8 years old. In my office, he's happy. He giggles when I wag my Daffy Duck puppet over my head and use my Daffy Duck voice. But his parents tell me that if Trent doesn't get his way, or some little unexpected thing goes wrong, then he erupts in a temper tantrum. He just goes totally berserk, his mom says. He screams. He cries. He throws things. But then 5 minutes later, he's laughing again. Before I can say anything, Mom continues. I went online and Googled it, and I'm thinking maybe he's bipolar. Rapid cycling. I nod sagely. After a thorough evaluation of Trent, it's clear that he doesn't have any form of bipolar disorder, rapid cycling or otherwise. He has mood swings. He's happy 1 minute and angry the next. He gets mad when he doesn't get his way. That's within the range of normal for an 8-year-old. But his parents seem helpless to guide his behavior or to respond appropriately to his outbursts. I begin to wonder, how do I break the news to this mom that there is no role for medication here? The problem lies not in Trent at all, but in his parents' reluctance to recognize that his mood swings are normal behaviors, which require good parenting to help their son to govern himself, rather than a symptom of a brain-based pathology to be treated with a medication. As I mentioned earlier, a big part of your job as a parent is to teach the rules of our culture. Fulgham's rules. Play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your own mess. Say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. In the 4 decades between the mid-1950s and the mid-1990s, parents could rely on the kindergarten classroom and the most popular programs on television to teach these rules. In that era, even those parents who didn't work terribly hard at parenting could usually take for granted that kids knew and accepted these rules. But not anymore. In many American kindergartens today, as I said earlier, the first priority is more likely to be teaching diphthongs rather than teaching respect and courtesy and manners. Parents today must explicitly teach Fulgham's rules and everything that goes with them. But many parents don't do that for at least two reasons. First, they may not realize that they need to. Their own parents didn't preach to them on these topics 20 or 30 years ago. So why do they have to teach this stuff to their own kids? Second, parents today are less comfortable asserting authority than parents in previous generations. I now regularly encounter parents like Trent's mom, parents who wonder whether their young child might have rapid cycling bipolar disorder or some other brain-based psychiatric explanation for bad behavior. I explain to those parents that it's normal for an 8-year-old to swing through different moods in half an hour, sometimes in just 5 minutes. That's not rapid cycling bipolar disorder. That's being 8 years old. I say it over and over again. The job of the parent is to teach self-control, to explain what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, to establish boundaries and to enforce consequences. 3 decades ago, that was common sense. Not anymore. Prior to the early 1990s, pediatric bipolar disorder was rarely diagnosed in the United States or anywhere else. In that era, most experts agreed that bipolar disorder was characterized by episodes of depression alternating with episodes of mania. A person experiencing a manic episode is typically euphoric and energetic, often going without sleep. Episodes of mania can last days or weeks. Episodes of depression can last weeks or months. Child psychiatrist Elizabeth Roberts goes even further. Psychiatrists are now misdiagnosing and over-medicating children for ordinary defiance and misbehavior. The temper tantrums of belligerent children are increasingly being characterized as psychiatric illnesses, using such diagnoses as bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and Asperger's. Doctors are justifying the sedation of difficult kids with powerful psychiatric drugs that may have serious, permanent, or even lethal side effects. Kids need authority, guideposts, structure. When parents abdicate their authority, a vacuum results. Nature abhors a vacuum. The doctor, armed with a prescription pad, steps in or is sucked in. Medication fills the role of regulating the child's behavior, a role which ought to have been filled by the parents. For many American parents, it is now easier to administer a pill than to reprimand a child. That's a shame. And that, in my view, is a major factor driving the explosion in the prescribing of these medications in the United States. Some aspects of this phenomenon are peculiar to North America. German researchers found that during roughly the same time period in which diagnosis of bipolar disorder was exploding for children in the United States, the proportion of children diagnosed with bipolar disorder in Germany actually decreased. In Spain, likewise, the rate of diagnosis of pediatric bipolar disorder did not increase during the same interval when it was exploding in the United States. Likewise for New Zealand. The Germans observed dryly, there is no compelling reason to presume that the frequency of bipolar disorder in children and adolescents is actually much higher in the U.S. than in Europe. Therefore, there is considerable European skepticism about the high prevalence rate of bipolar disorder in children in the U.S. The diagnosis of bipolar disorder in youngsters is fairly rare outside the United States. In Germany, a diagnosis of bipolar disorder in childhood is still extremely rare. Researchers compare diagnoses for children in the United States with children in England, using comprehensive national databases for both countries. They found that after adjusting for overall population, for every one child in England discharged with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, there are 73 children in the United States discharged with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. In both countries, teenagers are more likely to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder than young children are. But in the United States, a 6-year-old is substantially more likely to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder than an English teenager. Let me tell you about another patient. Dylan had been a good student throughout elementary school with many friends. But something changed when he started middle school. He lost interest in school, in most of his friends, and in his sports. His circle of friends narrowed. He now spent most of his free time with a few other boys who shared his interest in video games. He became defiant and disrespectful toward grown-ups, including his parents. He began refusing to eat supper with the family. Instead, he would stay in his bedroom and play online video games. His parents made an appointment for him to see a board-certified child psychiatrist. The psychiatrist talked with Dylan and his parents and reviewed the ADHD rating scales, which several teachers at the school had filled out for Dylan. The psychiatrist initially considered the diagnosis of depression, but rejected it. Instead, the psychiatrist made 2 diagnoses: oppositional defiant disorder and ADHD. He recommended a stimulant medication such as Adderall, Vyvanse, or Concerta. He was confident that Dylan would show improvement once he began treatment with one of those medications. Child psychiatrist Elizabeth Roberts goes even further. Psychiatrists are now misdiagnosing and over-medicating children for ordinary defiance and misbehavior. The temper tantrums of belligerent children are increasingly being characterized as psychiatric illnesses, using such diagnoses as bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and Asperger's. Doctors are justifying the sedation of difficult kids with powerful psychiatric drugs that may have serious, permanent, or even lethal side effects. Kids need authority, guideposts, structure. When parents abdicate their authority, a vacuum results. Nature abhors a vacuum. The doctor, armed with a prescription pad, steps in or is sucked in. Medication fills the role of regulating the child's behavior, a role which ought to have been filled by the parents. For many American parents, it is now easier to administer a pill than to reprimand a child. That's a shame. And that, in my view, is a major factor driving the explosion in the prescribing of these medications in the United States. Some aspects of this phenomenon are peculiar to North America. German researchers found that during roughly the same time period in which diagnosis of bipolar disorder was exploding for children in the United States, the proportion of children diagnosed with bipolar disorder in Germany actually decreased. In Spain, likewise, the rate of diagnosis of pediatric bipolar disorder did not increase during the same interval when it was exploding in the United States. Likewise for New Zealand. The Germans observed dryly, there is no compelling reason to presume that the frequency of bipolar disorder in children and adolescents is actually much higher in the U.S. than in Europe. Therefore, there is considerable European skepticism about the high prevalence rate of bipolar disorder in children in the U.S. The diagnosis of bipolar disorder in youngsters is fairly rare outside the United States. In Germany, a diagnosis of bipolar disorder in childhood is still extremely rare. Researchers compare diagnoses for children in the United States with children in England, using comprehensive national databases for both countries. They found that after adjusting for overall population, for every one child in England discharged with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, there are 73 children in the United States discharged with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. In both countries, teenagers are more likely to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder than young children are. But in the United States, a 6-year-old is substantially more likely to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder than an English teenager. Let me tell you about another patient. Dylan had been a good student throughout elementary school with many friends. But something changed when he started middle school. He lost interest in school, in most of his friends, and in his sports. His circle of friends narrowed. He now spent most of his free time with a few other boys who shared his interest in video games. He became defiant and disrespectful toward grown-ups, including his parents. He began refusing to eat supper with the family. Instead, he would stay in his bedroom and play online video games. His parents made an appointment for him to see a board-certified child psychiatrist. The psychiatrist talked with Dylan and his parents and reviewed the ADHD rating scales, which several teachers at the school had filled out for Dylan. The psychiatrist initially considered the diagnosis of depression, but rejected it. Instead, the psychiatrist made 2 diagnoses: oppositional defiant disorder and ADHD. He recommended a stimulant medication such as Adderall, Vyvanse, or Concerta. He was confident that Dylan would show improvement once he began treatment with one of those medications.